Hello guys, welcome back to the garage. Nigel here with you again, and I've got another video for you today. And as you've probably seen from the title, this is part 2 of rebuilding the MT-82 gearbox. Now I've just had a look online. Today is May the 4th and I last did this in July, so yeah, it's been like 10 months, sorry. If you remember last time when we did part 1, if you haven't seen it, go back and have a look. MT-82 rebuild part 1. We stopped at this part here, fitting this snap ring in. So I've ordered some new snap rings and stuff, and basically just added to the parts that I've got. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to show you the parts laid out on the bench, the new parts with all the numbers. So if you are going to tackle this, you know which parts to get, so you can do it. So without further ado, let's get to the bench and show you these parts, and then we'll start rebuilding the gearbox. And the camera's about to fall over, so I better switch it off. There's the gearbox on the trolley with a plastic bag over it. That's actually been in the hallway in the house since July, so should still be nice and clean. And then we've got the bits on the bench. Outside here we've got a sunny but windy day, and we've got the chassis there next to the Raptor. Look at that, it's bloody the wheels on that Raptor are huge. When you think they're like 285 75s or whatever they are, and they're 33-inch tires I think on that one. So yeah, right, so here's the gearbox and here's the bench. So these are the parts you're going to need. This is the crappy Land Rover manual. I've just been looking now. I've got the computer out here now, so I can look and see what I'm doing. But these manuals are crap. I was just having a look, and it goes on about the removing the detent. So I thought, well, that must be the start of it. And you go down and it removes it, and then they're talking about the handbrake and stuff, and then they're on about how to remove the gearbox. It's like, why would you remove the detents without taking the gearbox out? It's like, you know, it's just awful. And the axles and stuff, and there is nothing regarding parts of the rear axle. There is nothing that tells you. I couldn't find a single page that tells you the spindles that go onto the rear axle for your bearings. There's nothing to tell you how tight they should be. So it's a really rubbish manual. It's free, but it's rubbish. Anyway, enough moaning. So on the bench here we've got this part here. This is IYX500050. They call it an O-ring kit, and it's actually an O-ring. You can see here it's an O-ring and a tube of grease, and that is actually the correct grease from Land Rover for the you know, the output shaft where it goes on the splines, the bit that everybody talks about that wears out. And this is the grease that they make specially for it, even though they didn't put it on there in most of them in the factory. So it's funny that Land Rover make a special grease, or commission a special grease, and then don't use it. Strange that. Mine had it, and my shaft is absolutely perfect. So here is another. This is the big circlip that goes in the. That's for the output shaft as well. And then here we got our detent kit, LR17294, and this is basically your kit of detents that you have to replace. Unfortunately, they've gone away from your grub screws and springs and stuff because that was too easy. Now you have to buy these expensive, stupid bloody presses and stupid bloody things. Rubbish. So at least on the MT-82 here, the American MT-82 that's in this Mustang, which is made in China apparently, they're all like this one. So you can actually use a slide hammer to remove them. But no, on the German one they decided to go for this, so you have to drill the back of them and destroy them to get them out. So, and I don't think you can use the American type in the German gearbox. So. Anyway, so there's a seal. That's the seal for the selector shaft going in the back of the gearbox. That's LR010842G. So that's a blue bag part, but as long as it's got a G on it, it's okay. And then we've got another seal. This is for the front. There's actually a cover that goes over the front. It's a lay shaft or main shaft. I think it's lay shaft, isn't it? And that goes in that, so you have to destroy that to get it out because you have to drill it. So that's 00531G. And then we've got this little bung in the side. It's a little plastic plug that goes in the side of the gearbox, TRL50020. And the only reason I bought this is because it's got an O-ring on it, and because it's red I wanted to replace it. So I didn't want to use an ordinary rubber O-ring. And then we've got a couple of seals here, again Cortico, they're genuine numbers, the genuine items. LR00588800. That's for the back end of the gearbox, and then for the input shaft seal, there's this one here, LR005024G. So again, always get Cortico seals. That's the make there. They're really good. So that's that seal there. And then the two new clips I bought, this is the one for the input shaft, okay, 005137, and that's that one there, and that one's gone out of shape, so I've replaced it. And then this one here, which is where we stopped on the last video, LR023165, I'm guessing the number's been superseded. We can see here how much that clip has deformed when I've removed it. You can see the new one underneath and the old one on top. You can see how much it's the difference in diameter here, so well worth replacing. So that's going to be the first thing, is fitting that clip. So let's get on. Hey guys, just a quick bit of advice for people who are new to this. When you look at clips like this, or circlips or whatever, sometimes they're quite cheap and they're stamped out. So one edge is sharp and one edge is radiused, and it's always worth having a look to see which is which. And then in this case, because this ring here would want to go this way up the shaft, what you would do is make sure you've got the square corner facing up. So you'd always have the square corner facing a direction of travel, so the square corner would get into that groove and sit in there nice. If you put the radius side in there, it could ride over. It probably wouldn't, but it could, so it's always worth remembering. Now this is a good quality item, it's square on both edges, it's got no burrs on it or anything, and it's very, very nice indeed. So we'll see how easy this is to fit. I don't think it's going to be very easy at all, to be honest, but let's just see. We'll get these snap ring pliers. In fact, I'm going to give the end of these snap ring pliers a quick wipe, because they've got some debris on them. Obviously haven't been cleaning my tools properly before I put them away, which is a big no-no. So go in there and we'll just grab the end of this, get it over. Come on, go on. It's like it's a mile away and I don't want to overstretch it. There we go. It's gone down now. So I'm just going to take some of the stress off it. Just push it down. Now I'm going to get a piece of brass and just tap it into place. So grab a brass drift. Okay, so got a little brass drift here. Just going to knock it down. There you go. See that snap in? And that is much more positive now, and you can see when I tap it. If you look back at the very end of the part 1 video, you can see I was tapping this and it was all sliding around, going from side to side, but when I tap it now, it's absolutely solid and it's in that groove. It's not going anywhere, so I'm confident now that it's going to be okay. So there we go, that's that one in. So that's step 1 done. So we can put that bag and parts from there to one side out of the way. Right, next thing we're going to do is we've got these synchro rings to go in. So you've got the synchro ring assembly, and that's just going to drop. Make sure it's all assembled correctly. And then you've got these 3 lumps on here going around, and they're going to drop into those cutouts there. So it all goes in and it all engages nicely like that. And then we will apply a drop of oil. Don't need too much, just enough to give it some lube. And just a matter of interest, guys, I've just been on the email to Mr. Ashcroft and asked about recommended oils, and he's recommending a synthetic for this one, but wherever you've got one of his diffs, like in my front and rear axles, he's recommending you use mineral oil with his ATB and locker diffs, so worth remembering that one. Right, so I need to go to the manual now and see what's next. Okay, so next is going to be the first gear bearing in the first gear, and here they are here. Needle bearing in there, and I've always made sure I've kept that in there in the right direction so it goes back the same. That's running directly on the shaft, so they've sort of bedded in together. You don't want them to bed in again. You can see we've got a tiny little bit of corrosion on here where it's been sat out in the garage all through the winter, so I'll have to get some little bit of Scotch-Brite on there and give that a clean off. Get a bit of Scotch-Brite here, give that a quick rub, and that's gone. So there we are. And make sure it goes in the right way. You've got all the synchro stuff is on this side. You've got the diameter there for the synchro hub, and then you've got the teeth there, synchro teeth. So make sure it goes in the right way. So we've got the bearing. It's going to drop on like so. There you go. And we will give that a drop of oil. Like I say, it doesn't need to be flooded because it's going to get, when it gets filled with oil, it'll get plenty of oil all around it. And then this is going to drop on, so I'm going to make sure I've got oil. I don't know why I keep putting the cap back on this oil. I'm going to make sure I've got oil around this synchro hub here. So that's just going to drop down over the bearing. It's going to mesh in there, so that's that. So that's all looking good, and I'm just going to put a drop more oil down in there, just to make sure that bearing's got something to be getting on with. Right, next thing we got is this reverse gear bearing hub, and this is actually a press fit, so that needs to go over there. So what they're suggesting is heating this with a hot air gun to 100 degrees and then dropping it on, and it should just fall on, I'm guessing. What I'm going to do is get a piece of tube around, so I've got something just in case, just to make sure I'm not wasting time with it cooling down. So if I get it on there, it sort of stops halfway, I can just tap it the rest of the way. So I'll get that done now, and I'll try and do as much as I can of it on camera. Sorry guys, I couldn't film that. Basically, I cleaned off this old bit of rusty steel and stuck that on the voice so I could swivel that around and turn it while I was heating it. Got my good old trusty welding gloves out, used the hot air gun on setting 2 and heated it for about 3 minutes, and I was basically spitting on it. Disgusting, I know as it sounds, but as soon as I saw this, the liquid, the spit kind of just fizzle away straight away, then I knew that it was hot enough, and literally it just dropped on. Okay, look at that, that was so hot I couldn't touch it. It just literally just dropped on, nice thud down onto that gear, and now within seconds it was solid. So really good way of fitting that, guys, and it's, I know that it's down because I heard it just go thud, and it didn't sort of rattle around or anything, it just sort of slid down and dunk onto the bottom. So there we go. So if you haven't got a hot air gun, get one. You can use a blow lamp, but as I said before, the trouble is it makes everything sweat and rust and stuff. So let's have a look in the manual and see what's next. Okay, so the next bit now is the bearing. So we've got this, this is the reverse gear here, and we've got the bearing inside. Again, I've always kept that the right way around to make sure I know what direction it goes. So I can take that out of there, and I can put that straight onto here, because I know it's all nice and clean. So that's gone on there, lovely. And then we can just drop this gear on. I'm going to put a little bit of oil on these faces here, just so they've got something to be going on with. And then that's just going to drop on like that. There we go, so that's sitting on there. Got all the synchro and everything here. So I'm just going to put some oil down in there, just to make sure that bearing's got something to be going on with. And then the next thing we've got to do is fit this reverse gear synchro. Now, the trouble with this is a press fit. So this is going to slide over here. Okay, it's going to be one of those splines and it's a press fit. So I need to come up with some way of getting this on. I don't know if I can warm it up and just tap it on, or what I can do. But the other problem is I'm not going to be able to take it apart because it goes on that way up. So if it went on that way, it would be fine, but it's going to actually go on that way. And it's actually going to have to line up with these 3 nubbings in here as well. So it's going to have to be done with a bit of care and attention. So basically what I'm going to do, I think, is give that a little bit of a warm up and see if I can just tap it on rather than press it on. Okay, so the only way to do this is going to be the press, because I tried warming it up and it all just fell apart because you need to have the gloves on and you can't feel what you're doing. You've got this ring on the bottom here that needs to be correctly aligned, this one here. So the only way I'm going to do this is with the press, and I'll get it all sort of engaged, and then I can push that up in place, hold it in the right position, and then push this down. I think it's going to go on very easily, actually. The other thing is, because of this design of this, I'm lucky, I've got nuts and bolts here. I can actually move the centre line of the press over, so you see that's going to have to go over that way, so I can get it down. So before I do that, I'm going to have to put a bag over. Cleanliness is king with gearboxes, guys, and engines. Put a bag over it just to make sure that if anything comes off of here when I undo this, I think I've just knocked everything apart again in there, never mind. But when I undo these bolts under here, make sure nothing falls down onto the gearbox. So I'll get that done and then I'll come back and try and show you me pressing it on. Right, so here we go then. I did actually knock that through that plastic bag, and if you knock this outer ring down, the springs and balls fall out, and luckily this t-shirt's in here because one of the balls was sat down the back here on the t-shirt, so that was really lucky. So you have to be very, very careful with this because it will just fall apart easily. If it falls apart while you're assembling it, I don't think you'd be able to get it back together like it is, because it's all up underneath. So I've got this ring here, which is the closest thing I've got to fit, so that's going to go over the top there, and I'm going to make sure it's pressing on the centre rather than on the outer lips, and I'm going to make sure this is all even because I can see that's not square on there. It's not, it doesn't want to sit on very squarely, so it's sort of, maybe I'll try turning it a bit. Doesn't seem to want to sit on there square. It wants to start off on an angle, so we need to be very careful, and I can see that it's on an angle. When I put this on, if I line this up, this diameter here, I can see that it's pretty square now, so that's good. So I'll put this socket on the top, okay, and then this little bit of scrap material here. It's not dead centre, but I'm not going to worry about that. I might be able to just move the gearbox over a touch. A bit better. And as you can see, it's going on very easily indeed. I'm just going to come away and just make sure I'm not doing anything silly. It is on there square. I can see it's square, so that's all good. So put the socket back on there, put that one back under there. Now this ring underneath, I need to make sure this engages in those 3 slots without having it all fall apart, so I can feel then if it doesn't go in flush, it's not incorrect, so I can put my fingers under there and hold that, okay, and then gently push down. I'm probably going to squash my fingers. I'm happy with that. I'll give that a little push just to make sure it's down. And come away, take all our bits and pieces off, and I think we're good to go. That certainly looks pretty good to me. There we go. That was a bit nerve-wracking, that one. Okay, so the next bit it's telling us to do is fit the first, second gear selector, which is this one here. This is the plain one, this is the reverse with the noggin on the top. So if you remember, this is a bit of a mystery because in the manual, if you go back to part 1, all of a sudden these appear and then they disappear again, and it's the same with the strip down. So the person who actually authored the manual made mistakes with this one, I can tell you. So the first thing we're going to slide this one in, and looking at the manual it looks like it's going this way up, so that's just going to slide into there, into the first, second selector, like so. Make sure it's in on both sides. Yes, we're in on both sides, so we can just bring it round like that, and then this is going to slide down in here and then go into that bearing. Okay, and it's going to sit on there like that. Now we need to make sure this hole is aligned. Where is the hole? There's the hole, so we can get the, so that pin's gone in. It does say to use a new one, but I mean it's not really necessary if you remove the old ones carefully, and this is hardly done any work at all, so it's fine. So that's in there like that now. Okay, so that's got that little noggin down in there that's going to lock with that detemp plate, so when it's in reverse it can't get first or second, so that's all good. And then the next bit is saying is to install the reverse gear selector. So that one's going to go in, so it looks like that one's going to go in that way round. So we can slide that in there, like so. And then this selector is just going to drop in. He says. I guess I need that to go in there so it's out of the way. going to slot into there, I believe, if I've got everything the right way around. I'm just going to go back and check some photographs, and yes I have, there you go, that's gone in. So it won't go the other way by the look of it. Right then guys, we've come to a part in this build that I'm not going to film. It's basically going to be a lot of messing about and stuff with heat and everything, so I'm not going to bother putting the camera on because I'll probably just make a hash of it. But what we've got to do now is we've got to get sealant on this face. Okay, we've got to heat up this bearing so that it slides over the shaft, output shaft easily. We've also got to fit in, at the same time we've got to put in the pivots for the reverse selector fork and get all the 13 bolts in all loosely fitted, and then put the dowels in and then get everything torqued down. So it's just not going to be easy at all. I've got a choice of sealants. I've got the High-Low Seal 100, which is what you get from Ashcroft's, which is great stuff. You've got this one here, Loctite 574. This stuff's brilliant, but it's out of date, so I'm not sure. Hylamar Blue is good, but the trouble is it dries out so quick. We need something that's going to go on there and stay wet, because it's going to take a while before we're compressing down on it. And we've got the Worth Silicon RTV. I think I'm going to use this one. The only reason I would use this, but it's out of date and I don't want to be taking this apart again. If it was something like a, you know, a plate on the side of the block or something that I could easily get to and replace if I had to, I would chance it. But I do rate this stuff very well. But I do rate this stuff very highly as well. And I know this is okay because I've only just recently opened it. So I think I'm going to use this one, get a thin smear around there, and I know it takes a long time to dry, so it gives me plenty of working time. And also I know it's quite resistant to heat because I'm going to have to be probably warming up when we press the dowels in, rather than, you know, risk cracking any casing. So I'm going to get the sealant on now, get this bearing heated up, and go from there. So I'll see you back when I've got this actually on. Maybe come back and show you fitting these. I don't know, we shall see. Right then guys, there we go, it's together. Glad I didn't do it on camera because it's a nightmare. A few little tips for you if you are going to rebuild one of these. Make sure you've got this bolt handy. This is the bolt that holds the output shaft on the back of the gearbox. Make sure you've got this handy. And also I turned up this this metal tool so I could put it in the bearing. I could heat it up, get it red hot, well not red hot, but hot, you know, very hot, and I could put it in the bearing, let the heat transfer into the bearing, do it again, do that a couple of times, and that was enough to expand the bearing, so it was a fairly easy sliding fit over there. Now all I did was put that on there, heated it up, job done. The first thing I found when I put the cover on, it would not go down. And inside here you've obviously got the reverse idler gear, which has to mesh with the reverse gear. Now it's quite a coarse tooth pattern, so it's very difficult to get it to mesh. So my advice is get everything nice and hot, get your sealant on, make sure you've got your bolts and dowels and everything's all ready, and everything's here ready to go. Then get your bearing hot. When you know your bearing's hot enough and you're going to go for it, drop the cover on, and immediately afterwards put this bolt in. Okay, put this bolt in because you won't be able to turn the shaft, you haven't got enough splines sticking out, plus it's all very hot. So put this bolt in, get a 30mm spanner, and then just, once you've got that like that, you can turn the shaft. Okay, you can turn the shaft and just get it to rot, and the cover will go down. It will drop down about 10mm, and then you know the reverse gear is engaged. Then you've got these two shafts. You've got the first, second, and the reverse selector shafts in here. All I did was got in there with a screwdriver and just wiggled them about, because there's two bearings here they go in. And obviously you don't want to start pressing and knocking things, it's just going to damage those bearings. So I just got in there with a screwdriver in the gap and just wiggled them about until I felt the cover sort of going on. The problem with it is it's extremely difficult because you've got the resistance of the sliding fit, and you're working again with the resistance of things not going. So it's getting that feel for when it is actually sliding and when it's actually up against something. And generally you can tell by the sound when you I just put a socket over and tapped on the bearing, so I wasn't actually tapping on the casing. But when you tap it, you kind of get a hollow thud. And if it's solid, it's more of a sort of that sort of sound rather than a hollow sound, you know. And then once you've got that down, get a few of the bolts in, just finger tight, just to line it up. Then I warmed up the corners. I put the dowels in. That was quite a job actually. Putting the dowels, I was really worried it was going to crack the casings. So I got the dowels in, and then just sort of diagonally pulled everything down. once I got it roughly pulled down, put these reverse selector pivots in, and then and then just leave them. I didn't bother the thread lock or anything straight away. And then once it was all torqued down and everything all nice and level, then I took these out, put some thread lock on them, and then wound them in, torqued them up to what is it, 27 pounds-feet. These are 18 pounds-feet, but I've probably gone to about 20, just to sort of really tweak them there, make sure everything's down. And then afterwards, I've just gone round with a soft mallet and just a few times gone round like this, just tap the casing, just to make sure that it's not sort of, you know, holding the aluminium up. I want to make sure it's all down. And of course then when we fit the output shaft on the back and we torque this up to this massive torque that it goes up to, I can't remember what the torque is now, but I know it's big. When we torque that up, that'll make sure everything is all sort of sandwiched together, because we got that reverse synchro under there, which is pressed on. Then we got the bearing, which is pressed on, and then underneath there you've got the bearing inner for the reverse gear, which is pressed on. So everything's all got to sort of press up together. So my advice would be to sort of perhaps over tighten this a bit first, or sort of give it a few, torque it up, give it a few whacks, and then torque it up again. But I'll show you all that when I do it anyway. So there we go. I may be fitting one of the L.O.F output shafts. Now this is something I want to talk about. So I think what I'll do is put the camera looking at me so I can talk to you about it. Right, dicing in between the hailstones here. So basically let's just hope the hailstones stay away for a couple of minutes. Right, so for those of you that don't know about the Puma output shaft issues, there are a lot of people that get knocking, losing drive and all sorts. So right here and now I'm going to show you why that happens, what happens, and how to cure it. So this is basically the gearbox you've just seen me build, and on the end of here this is the intermediate casing that goes between the MT-82 gearbox and then your transfer box would sit on here, okay, and be hanging out that side, and your prop shafts would be coming out down here. So basically this casing is just basically the interconnection between the gearbox, which is down here, and the transfer box, which goes here. So that casing comes off, okay, and then what you've got behind is a output shaft, and this is the MT-82 output shaft. So it's quite a simple construction. You've got a plastic cover here which is held on with a cable tie. This one isn't fully engaged because it's all held in with an O-ring and I don't want to pull it out, or a snap ring. So this one's not fully engaged. So basically this plastic cover there, and then you have a cable tie literally goes around there to hold that in place. So that's that bit, and then you've got this rubber seal which keeps the grease in. And as you know, I mentioned earlier, we've got there should be some special grease in there which you get from Land Rover. And then this is basically the two parts of the output shaft themselves. We've got the lower hub here that goes onto the gearbox, and then you've got this part here which is on a spline, and this goes into the transfer box. Now as you can see, mine has got very little wear on it, or if any at all, which I've just shown you. So this is the bit that goes. This bit here rusts, and in fact I didn't just show you, did I? No, that was when I just stopped the video for the hailstones. So this one has got very little wear on it, 16,000 miles. This one was fortunately greased from the factory, so it has no problem. So I actually wonder, is there really a problem with the design of this thing if it's correctly fitted? The problem seems to be that when they're fitted without grease, and what happens is this all frets and rusts, and fretting and rust, as you know, the play just gets worse and worse and worse. I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but the play gets worse and worse and worse, and they end up just slip, and you end up losing drive. Now when they start to go, you get a clunk because you get a load of play between the two. I mean, you've got backlash and clunk in the gearbox anyway there, but they get actual play in these splines here, okay? And as you can see here, these splines are in extremely good condition. That's the snap ring I was talking about. And then you've got that hub there which I've just pushed on gently. I'll probably have to tap it off. So what Luke has done, L.O.F, if you watch YouTube and you follow Land Rover channels, there's a channel called Off-Track Family, Off-Track Family. Very good channel actually. Young lady on there, they're European, I think they're Swedish or Swiss, I'm not sure. I think they're French speaking, I don't know what I'm talking about. But they're not English, put it that way, but they are English speaking on the channel, so you don't have subtitles and stuff, and very good English as well. So lovely channel, lovely lady, lots and lots of interesting stuff, technical, off-roading, overlanding, all sorts of stuff. Really, really good articles on the dual battery setups, and they actually go wrong and make a mistake and end up blowing up a battery, and they tell you all about it and what they did wrong, and really, really good, really, really. It's good to see people doing stuff wrong, because then you don't make the same mistake, which is what I try and do with this channel. You know, so many people go, there you go, Gearbox is built, and that go, it's pretty, isn't it? Like, right, see you next week. So yeah, so basically Off Track family have put out a couple of videos regarding L.O.F products, L.O.F, and L.O.F is an English company, Luke, and he makes clutches, and he's just gone into brakes and also these extreme output shafts. So what he's done is replace the two piece with one piece, and you can see one of those being fitted, how it all goes together. It comes with a special tool for extracting it. It has a special insert that goes in the end of the gearbox because it's got one long bolt going through it rather than being bolted like this. And you will also see that if you look in the comment sections, there has been a little bit of negativity about it. Now, as an engineer, I think the negativity could be unfounded. The issue that a certain individual is talking about is misalignment between the gearbox and the transfer case. So basically, you can imagine if this end of your gearbox here is running dead true, and you put your transfer case up here and it's 10th out to one side, then basically this shaft is constantly twisting, and as it's going round, it's doing this as it's going round, so it's going to break. There won't be 10th out misalignment, I can assure you. And what I'm going to ask Luke to do is send me one of those shafts, and I will do a dummy assembly with my transfer case, and I'll put a clock on the end to see how true it runs, and I'll bet it runs dead true. Because if there was any serious misalignment, this would be knackered, because grease or no grease, if you've got serious misalignment, this would be worn out. Okay, so I hope you understand that. If this is running true, and then you put something over here that's running, say, 10th out, yeah, then basically this shaft has got to also be 10th out. So the center would be 0, and then 10th out up here. So basically that shaft has got to bend. But you can imagine when it starts to rotate, that shaft is basically got to do this to stay in line, or it's actually doing this to stay in line. So eventually the shaft's going to break, or it's going to destroy the bearings or whatever. So I don't think there's going to be an issue there. The gentleman in question has said about there's no alignment aid or anything. Well, there are. There's dowels in this case to the main case. There's dowels in this case here to this case, and then there's dowel from that case into the transfer case, which is how every other transmission is assembled. So there are many transmissions out there with a lot more assemblies than this going together, and they don't have misalignment issues. So I don't know. I may eat my words, but I can assure you that if Luke wants to send me one of his shafts and let me try it out, test it out, as in, you know, fitting it up and clocking it, then I will tell you the honest truth, and I'm sure it's going to be absolutely fine. So there we go. So that's that for this one. We'll call that a day for part 2 because it's gone on long enough and I've waffled. So there will be a part 3, and in part 3 it'll just be all about putting all this together, putting the well, I won't be able to put this together because if Luke's going to send me one of his shafts, I don't want to press that on and then have to pull it off again. That's crazy. But it's going to be all about putting in the detents and everything, and then we'll check it all selects gears, and we probably get some oil in it or something, I don't know. And there's still a few bits and pieces to do. So yeah, I'll see you all soon for part 3. But if you do, go and have a look at Off Track Family. It's a good channel, and if you are interested in one of Luke's extreme shafts, I would disregard for now, or wait till I do something if Luke's going to let me have a shaft and test it out. But I wouldn't worry too much about what's being said. You will see my comments in there, and you can read them. So I'll see you all soon. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.